One hail, welcome back to the channel, welcome to Monday, welcome to Countdown Day, and this topic is brought to us this week by Raziel Kane Reviews. Raz, good friend of the channel, and he was curious to know how the fans would vote if asked the question, what is the one third-party Transformers company that you would never suggest someone buy from? In other words, you would say, hey, steer clear from this company because you know what, they don't make good products or it's overpriced or whatever the case might be. What are the top 10 Transformers third-party companies that should be avoided? That's going to be our focus this time around in the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey, one hail, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, please like, comment, share. Of course, subscribe, and while you're at it, light 'em up, baby. Hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton, and it lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links. All of that's in the description down below. Also in the description down below, and if you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we have to offer to you through spring, or of course hit the join button at any given time, and become a channel member. And like I said, this topic was one that Raz brought to my attention, and I said, you know what, we did the top 10 like best third-party companies 2 weeks ago, then we did top 10 Transformers songs, and now we're going to do, I guess you could say, the top 10 worst third-party companies, the ones to be avoided, the ones that you advise people not to buy from. And it's so strange. I didn't know how this topic was going to be taken by the fandom, and this topic had one of the lowest voter turnouts that we've ever had. Only a few hundred votes this time, which tells me that third-party companies in general are either all so bad that people couldn't pick one, or all so good, which is what I suspect is the case, that people said, man, I don't think I could advise against getting anything from any third-party company because they all bring something to the table. And I get that. In fact, one person said, I can't vote because I don't think I should advise anyone on, you know, a company that they should or shouldn't buy from. I mean, that's what reviewers do every single day. They give you their, or they should, give you their good, bad, and ugly and make a recommendation if you should spend your money on a product or not. Obviously, at the end of the day, the call is yours. But I thought that the question was interesting because it really would tell us which ones have issues that seem to be consistent. And we did get that emerge, but I thought that we were going to get a bigger voter turnout than we did. That tells me that, honestly, I think a lot of third-party offerings are quite good. And even the ones that appear here certainly have their fans and certainly have some great products that have been released as well. So I wanted to give that kind of caveat before we go on, because I don't want people to kind of get bent into shape and say, I love that company. You probably do, and maybe you've had great experiences, but enough voters have had negative experiences that that's why a particular company would make the list. Hope that makes sense. I thought it was going to be a bigger voter turnout. I'm a bit surprised that it wasn't, but I understand why it wasn't. We do have, and we also had some people who said all third-party companies. Like, that's not a vote. Or they said no third-party companies. I explicitly say in the question, one. Or they'd say Takara? I'm not sure how they would see Takara as a third party, and a bunch of people said Hasbro. I assume they were joking. I don't know, because again, Hasbro and Takara would not be third party. Somebody asked if HasLab was third party. No, HasLab is Hasbro. Like, I didn't think I was going to have to explain third party, but I did. So I should also note that there were a bunch of votes that had to be disqualified because they didn't follow the question. And the question was worded, what is the one third-party Transformers company that you would advise people to not buy from? I'm not sure how else I can make it clear. I digress. We do have a couple of honorable mentions. Omnigonics, particularly their spin-out, which is their version of Sunstreaker. A lot of people say it's falls apart, it's not well made, it's loosey-goosey. I don't know, I've never experienced it. And Bad Cube. A lot of people said Bad Cube because of tolerance issues, slash materials, and unnecessarily complicated transformations. That's what people said. So, I don't know. I will note this. A lot of the companies on this list I don't have first-hand experience with, so I'm going to relay to you what the voters said. With that said, now we can get to doing what we always do each and every week, and we are going to kick things off with number 10 first. And coming in at number 10 is a company that really hasn't done much of anything since 2015, a company I've never actually heard of, and it's this. I'm not sure if it's pronounced Zavarin or Zavergen or Xovergen. I don't know. I don't know this company, but those that voted for it said, look, they were ambitious. They done a couple of things, notably like some Optimus Primus stuff, some Ginrai stuff, whichever one you want to pronounce it as. I'm not sure what the going is. Some people argue and say Ginrai, some people argue and say Jinrai. I toggle back and forth. But people said, look, when it came to the product actually being released back in 2015, it came with missing parts, it came with missing pins, missing screws, and the plastic itself was very soft and prone to bending and sometimes breakage. All of those issues, even if the designs were great, and I've seen the images, they were something. But even if the designs were perfect, if your materials and your build quality is garbage, it's going to be an absolute nail in your coffin. And enough fans feel that way about this company that it was able to take the number 10 slot. Coming in at number 9, we have a company that also appeared on the top 10 best list, and it's this company. Planet X, that's right. Very well known for their Fall of Cybertron stuff, and people kind of said a couple of things here. They said, first, Planet X relies too much on friction, and not enough on locking points, and not enough on tabs. They said, 2, as great as everything looks, there's a fear that over time, because of that reliance on friction, that you're going to end up having joints become very loose, and you're going to end up with a lot of issues there. And 3, as wonderful, as well painted, well designed, well molded as Planet X is, they are also wildly expensive. So much so that either you're kind of in for it all or you're out for it all. It's very, very difficult to be in for it all unless you're willing to accept that cost value analysis, so to speak. I can't speak to it. I haven't experienced firsthand Planet X. But I've always heard a mix of good and bad. I've always heard the positive and the negative. If you're relying on friction, if there's concerns that that friction won't last, and the price is, pretty darn high, all of that is going to be mountains to climb for fans. Mountains to climb for a company to appeal to fans. And those weaknesses are significant enough that enough fans felt that Planet X deserved to be here at the number 9 slot. Number 8 takes us to one of the companies that have endured for a long time, and good old Keith with Keith's Fantasy Club. And again, I can't really speak for KFC too much. I've seen a lot of it. I know that they are very famous for doing a lot of repaints with slight remolds. I know that their quality and their tolerances have been iffy over the years, sometimes really good, sometimes not. I haven't heard many complaints about the quality of the plastic, however. I have heard that there are paint scrapage issues. Again, this is coming from fans. I'm not speaking firsthand about this. If you're disagreeing with what I'm saying, remember, this is what people told me. And one person said, their Junkions are fine, but everything else that they've made has been pretty iffy and wishy-washy. Make of that what you will. I can't really speak to it. I know Keith has big fans. I know Keith has big detractors. Maybe middle of the road. And maybe that's why Keith was able to slot himself in here at the number 8 slot. Coming in at number 7, we have a company that I only have one product from. And I love it, honestly. And I've looked at a few other products from this company. But it's not one I'm super familiar with, although I kind of understand at least part of the reasoning that people voted for. DNA Design. So DNA Design is basically mostly for upgrades, and a lot of people do love them. I do. I have this set that was for the Power of the Prime's Optimal Optimus that gives him his last mode, and it's a great set. Hefty, solid, well molded, great plastic, but voters said, look, They tend to have their pegs and stuff wear down over time and not slot in as well, and therefore you lose friction, therefore you lose connectivity. I can't speak to that. I haven't experienced it with my Optimal Optimus, but apparently other people have. The one that I do understand and agree with is that the cost of their sets are very high, sometimes more than what the original character is. Case in point, the Legacy Evolution, Beast Wars, Transmetal 2, Dragon, Megatron. I believe the upgrade kit for that was as much, if not more, than what the actual leader class offering cost. So I understand that. Is it enough for you to bother doubling the price? However, what a lot of people do give them credit for and say it's worth it is their upgrade kits specifically for both the 86 Dinobots and Titans. Their Titan upgrade kits tend to be really darn popular. Again, like I said, I can't speak to it too much because I only have the Optimal Optimus ones. Though, I will say this, when we go back and we look at something like the feet upgrades for Fortress Maximus and Metroplex, I mean, they don't really have a locking point per se. Nicely designed, but maybe there should have been a ratchet built in there somehow. So some design issues, some issues of losing tolerance over time, and of course the cost issue was significant enough among voters that it was able to solidify DNA Design at the number 7 slot. Number 6 was a company well ahead of its time because it was Impossible Toys. Gotta give Impossible Toys credit for being ambitious. They wanted to do, for example, Tetrajet Seekers. And you know what? They did. Tetrajet Seekers. A whole bunch of them. And when they did them, like, I guess that they certainly look kind of janky with gigantic wings. A little bit bigger than the classics deluxe Seekers. I don't think that they were too bad for the time, but they have not aged well. And in doing the transformation, trying to tab everything together, there were a lot of little tiny pegs. A lot of them tended to break off. Then we have something like their take on the Quintessons, which for a period went to astronomical prices until the Earthrise Quintessons and Judge and stuff came out. Even now, if you want to get a scientist or you want to get a prosecutor, it can be pricey. A lot of people said, well, there was really no articulation or mobility there, and the plastic was very thin and not good quality on those. I can't speak to it. Then we had something like their Omega Sentinel that was done. That it might have had like movement at the arms. It really didn't have much movement at all. Then they did things like the little human Spike and Sparkplug and stuff, and they were generally well received. But people said, they're okay, it's ambitious, but you know what, like the tolerances aren't great. It's common for things to fall off. And then we have something like all of the like mini bot cars here in the picture. And again, at the time, people nabbed them up because they were like, man, this looks like it jumped off the screen. However, there were articulations to, there were limits to some of the articulation points, like kick forward, for example. A lot of people said, the legs and the arms are kind of spindly compared to the tubby body. They were ambitious. They had great ideas and probably just a little bit ahead of their time. I would love to see what those designers are doing today. And I would love to see what companies they're working for and if they're still putting out things under some other name or working for some other company, because the potential was here for something really special. Unfortunately, what we ended up getting was a lot of questionable merchandise that, while it sold well, it has since been far exceeded, outdone by other offerings. Impossible Toys, forward thinking for the time, but has not aged well, and comes in here at the number 6 slot. And now a hush falls over the crowd as we have reached the ever popular, ever coveted halfway mark. And at the halfway mark, we have one that I'm kind of confused with, to be perfectly honest with you. And it is Toy World. Now, here's why I'm confused. I have Toy World's hegemon, who was actually in the picture for this week's question. And to this day, he is still my Megatron of choice. He is splendid for my mainline collection. He is wonderful. He turns into the Walther P-38. He's excellent. I love him. Excellent articulation, though the arms haven't aged the best. That's definitely the big limit on him. But well built, well designed generally. Couple of miscues on the design, I think, for like swinging tolerances and stuff. A lot of people think that the Toy World Constructor as a Devastator is renowned. It is the best masterpiece style Devastator out there. That's what people say. However, there were a bunch of voters who said that thing is a clunky, cumbersome monstrosity that is not fun to transform. And while it looks great in all of its modes, getting to all of those modes is a Herculean task. I don't know if that's true or not. I've never even watched a review for Constructor. I just know what I've heard. I'm not an MP guy. I know he looks great, but I can't speak to the build quality. Here's the weird thing about this, and the confusing thing about this. A lot of people that voted for Toy World voted based on the politics of how they do business. And the break that happened with designers that went on and became another separate company, and the designers that stayed, and where they got their designs from, and who owns what, and some shady business practices and stuff. I don't know if Toy World has the ability to even recover from it. I don't even know if they're still in operation because of some behind the scenes nonsense. Which is a big shame, because it really was a company that had a great reputation and sort of flushed it down the toilet, it seems. Toy World takes the number 5 slot. Coming in at number 4, we kind of build off of Toy World from number 5 with Zeta Toys / O1 Studio. Because it's the same company, right? So it's so weird. A lot of people that voted for Zeta said that they found Cell and Seed very difficult to transform. And you know what? Cell is difficult to transform because he's engineered magnificently. It's not just a shell former where you build stuff around him. He literally turns from a sphere to a robot and turns inside out. The trick with Cell, probably with Seed, is positioning the arms perfectly. If you position the arms perfectly, then all of the panels kind of lock in fairly elegantly. However, if they're off ever so slightly, then yes, things won't lock in. So I don't know if it's a matter of difficulty as much as precision. Maybe it's a little too precise. But here's what got me. A lot of people that voted for O1 Studio and Zeta, while they did certainly mention Seed and Cell, they also mentioned Superion. And I've known a lot of people who love that Superion, and they said, man, this company had to engineer this with a whole other chunk section because it couldn't include all the parts. And while it works great when it's all combined, you're doing it with a bunch of parts forming. And for something that costs this much, something that's supposed to be perfect and masterpiece level, you're doing a bunch of parts forming, and I don't like that. Some people are going to like it, some people are not. That's why a company like this can appear on best lists for some people and worst lists. I get it. Parts forming, over precision, probably over engineering in some people's eyes, and the prices for them have gone up significantly. Case in point, my Cell, when it was under Zeta, I got it for like $250 Canadian shipped, and Seed I think is like $411 or something. Like a big difference, man. Big difference. I get it. There's a lot of criticisms here. A lot of good, a lot of bad, but enough criticisms that Zeta / O1 Studio was able to take the number 4 slot. Now at number 3, we have a company I haven't heard from in quite a little while. It is Alien Attack. I actually forgot about this company. And then I went back and I looked and I was like, oh yeah, Farage. That thing was panned. A lot of what they have done and put out, while, you know, it might look fine, while it might be designed fine, a lot of it honestly is just, as one voter said, I love this, a panel-laden mess. If you're a big fan of panel formers, then Alien Attack might be for you. If you're not a big fan of panel formers, then this probably isn't the company for you. I'm not a huge fan of that. I find a lot of panel transformation to be really obnoxious. Sometimes it works. 1 or 2 panels is all right, but when it becomes a, again, quote, panel-laden mess, maybe it's time to bow out. And this seems to be the trend for Alien Attack, and enough fans don't like those messes, don't like those designs, that it was able to take the number 3 slot. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that the next one appeared as number 3, I want to say, on the best third-party company list. It's going to be number 2 this time. And you know what? I thought it was going to be number 1 for best third-party because I know the fans of this particular company are absolutely rabid. Of course, I'm talking about Fans Toys. I'm not a fan of the company. I experienced Phoenix, and the criticisms that people have here I think are spot on with my experience. I understand the popularity of the company, and people even said, I'll give credit where credit is due. When you look at them as a display piece, they're magnificent. Whether in an alt mode, whether in robot mode. They have great paint. They look the part. They are smooth and clean in their alt modes and in their robot modes. Give credit where credit is due. So why did it get enough votes to rank number 2 as a company not to suggest to buy from? Well, here's what fans said. They said, first, everything that they release is really expensive. It's all masterpiece, so if you're into that price point, you're into that range, you're into that collection, cool, you'll be fine with it. But for a lot of people, they're going to look and say, wow, that looks great. And then when they see the price, they're like, oh, that's way too expensive for that. I agree with that. I don't think they're worth the price personally. A lot of people said, rapid decline. They said, I have some Fans Toys products, and I've transformed them, over the years a bunch of times, and they seem to be getting looser and looser and looser all the time. Some other people, when they said rapid decline, said the quality that you get now from Fans Toys is not the quality that you got 5 or 7 or 8 years ago. The quality overall has gone down, whether that is build quality or whether that is materials used. And people also said it's gotten to a point where you will buy something and it should have this or that accessory, and it's not there. And guess what? They'll announce that that accessory is coming with this release later on. So now you got to buy another release to get the accessory that you already should have had. That's bad business because it's forcing you to double dip. So very expensive, rapid decline, accessories missing, breakage out of package, which is what I experienced with Phoenix with an ankle. And the last one, a few people said, was looks splendid in all modes. But there is absolutely no joy whatsoever in doing the transformations between them. You often need something to pry pieces apart, and when you're pushing them together, sometimes those tolerances are a little bit too tight and a little bit scary. And it shouldn't be frightening to transform something that you paid that much money for. It should be a fun, smooth experience. I understand that too. I get it. Fans Toys has a lot of fans, has a lot of good things, but they also have a lot of criticisms. And all are valid, the good and the bad. Fans Toys this time around takes the number 2 slot. And now here we are, very tippy top number 1. And number 1 sticks with the Masterpiece scale. And it's a company that I don't think appeared on the best list at all. But number 1 is X-Transbots. Yeah, XTB. And people said, look, they have improved over time from where they started. However, and again, I had to write down what voters said. Much like with Fans Toys, the transformations are very fiddly. A lot of people went back and cited the, not Cyclonus, the Scourge that they did. As great as that looked, it was a fiddly mess to transform. The transformations themselves, even though they have improved, are wildly, needlessly, overly complicated. There are easier ways to accomplish things than what they design it. The QC can be very fiddly and inconsistent. Somebody might have a great version with excellent QC and tolerances, but that exact same offering might be, bought by somebody else, and all of the tolerances and stuff be off. Sounds a little bit like Hasbro to me, if you ask me. People said that they're prone to breakage because of the needless, overcomplicated transformations. A lot of times you'll move something and you're trying to be Ginger and snap goes the brake and that's it. Now it's broken. Great. Wonderful. A lot of people cited, for example, when it comes to breakage, Motormaster. Their Motormaster and said, look, their Menasor looks great, but it's a disastrous mess to do and put together. One guy said that his Motormaster's trailer broke. XTB sent him a replacement, and the replacement out of package was also broken. I mean, that speaks to customer service. You didn't even check the replacement to make sure it wasn't broken before you sent it out? I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm glad I'm not a masterpiece collector, because a lot of those companies seem to make a lot of problems for a lot of people. XTB, questionable QC, replacements that are broken, breakage issues, unnecessarily complicated transformations, again, paint scraping that happens because of poor tolerances, inconsistency of releases. Man, all of that and even more. Whoo! Poor XTB, as great as they look, fans have a lot of issues with that company, and they slotted in at the #1 position. And that's it. 10 down to 1 once again. Wasn't that a wild list? Like, I had no idea how it was going to pan out. I can only relate to you what voters said to me. Some of it I agree with, some of it I don't agree with, some of it I'm sure you agree with, and some of it you don't agree with. I get it. Other ones that did have votes that did not make it on the list include Ace Collectibles. I think they did a version of Cliff Jumper that wasn't that well received. Second Chance. Now, I use the Second Chance trailer with my Earthrise Optimus Prime. It goes by rights with the Age of Extinction Optimus Prime, and I love it. I think it's probably the best Optimus trailer going. However, I do accept that the plastic of it is pretty rigid, and if that was used for example, their oversized Fall of Cybertron Optimus, I understand how you might have concerns of breakage, because it is a rigid plastic that doesn't have a lot of give. BTS, their design and tolerances, apparently they did like a sound wave, and like they done a Rat Bat that like fell apart, and a janky looking rumble. Dr. Wu, that one surprised me. Montoy, good old Montoy. Cheap KOs. I've done a lot of KO Beast Wars here on the channel. They are all Montoy. Some okay, some not so much. Magic Square, apparently their plastic is gummy, is what people said, and pop, and joints tend to pop. Fans Hobby had a few, largely because of their Naval Commander. That said, Naval Commander is getting a reissue, hopefully with those issues fixed, and they're also doing now, recently announced a Nemesis version of that, which looks pretty cool. Fans Project had its errors, had its mistakes, no doubt that it made along the way. I can't speak for recent product. All I can speak for is my experience with Dino King, which is pretty excellent. Though, I'm not going to lie, there's a couple of tolerance issues. So I understand how some people, if they've encountered a number of tolerance issues, might vote for them. I thought this one was interesting. Make toys, but not their actual figures. Their upgrade kits. I don't even remember Make Toys really doing upgrade kits, but I'm sure they probably have, and I'm just forgetting. Apparently the upgrade kits tend to be overly complicated to install and break. That said, the only, I think, Make Toys thing I have is their Chaos Paladin. I think that was Make Toys. And like, he's pretty great. A couple of times I wish that certain joints could bend a little bit more than what they do, but he's pretty great, and I love the feel of the plastic. Can't speak for upgrade kits from the company. Black Mamba. I like Black Mamba for the Dinobots, but I'll say this, in going to Volcanicus mode, the Grimlock arms never first nor last actually slotted in place where they were supposed to. But I like Black Mamba, but I understand, again, tolerances. And was that the only other ones besides everything else that I mentioned? I believe it was. Surprised that you didn't see anything voted on here, for example, with some of the, like, I don't want to say more popular companies, but like, there were no votes for New Age, there were no votes for Iron Factory, for example, so it was a bit of a surprising list. I don't think TFC had any votes either, but it was a bit of a surprising list. How did it shake out to you? I'd be really interested to know if you know, what you agree with, what you don't agree with. Like I said, some of it I agree with, some of it I don't. I was only relaying what the fans said, and the fans, you guys, always have the last word. That said, I'm going to thank you now for coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link, check us out on Patreon, see what we have to offer to you through spring, or of course hit the join button at any given time and become a channel member. While you're at it, please and thank you, hit the subscribe button, stick around and have some fun with us here on the channel. And don't forget, not for a second, not for a day, not for a moment, that somehow, someway, each and every single day, you right there, you do make a difference in the world. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights at the stop motion premieres, or the old-fashioned way right here inside the videos.